We bought 5 chairs for under $200 on Amazon, and I'm really excited about this group of chairs just because I found a couple solid alternatives to the Ticova chair that has become my go-to recommendation for this price range just because it has so much bang for its buck. The CU M18 is one of the most popular chairs on Amazon for under $200, and it has a solid 4.4-star rating on over 13,000 reviews. But even still, I can't recommend it. One big reason is because you can get the exact same chair for less than what Sihu sells it for from other brands like Giantex. It's the same chair, and they consistently sell it for less money. The Sihu brand doesn't hold any more value than the others, so you may as well save some money if you actually like this chair. But the chair itself, I think, is pretty terrible, and I would consider it to be a pretty big downgrade to the Ticova, which usually costs less than the Sihu M18. The build quality is going to be lower end on this chair, but what you'd expect at this price point. I'd say it compares similarly to Ticova for build, but when we look at comfort, it goes downhill. The seat is right up there with the Secretlab Titan as being the hardest seats I've ever used, and it also doesn't have any flexibility, so I find it to be really uncomfortable. I also find the backrest to be pretty bad because I can feel the frame on my back and upper shoulders, and I do not have this problem with the Ticova. And while I like that Sihu went with a little padding on their lumbar support, I don't think it does enough to make up for the frame design being so poor. The armrests have decent softness, but they have an awkward concave and this weird slit around the entire pad. I have a hard time making these arms work just because they're not very adjustable. The headrest is pretty good, and I like the recline, but I could never recommend this chair over the Ticova. The Ticova has a more comfortable seat and back, a better adjustment package on the armrests, and can often be found for as low as $120. The Hbada office chair is going to be the most basic model in this list, but it's also consistently the least expensive at $129. This is the most limited in the group because of its basic design and because of its lack of adjustability. This could be a good option for a home office or a nook that's not used a ton, maybe a couple hours or less a day. The chair just can't adjust enough to accommodate a wide range of people, and it won't have the support to be comfortable for anything more than a couple hours at most. With that said, it's only $129, and because it is so simple, there isn't much that can go wrong. The biggest draw with this chair, aside from the price, may be the flip-up arms. Being able to flip them up out of the way makes this chair a bit more versatile for other applications than simply tasking or computer work. The Hyken is one of the most popular mesh chairs in the world and is often cited as providing good value for its price point of around $185. While I would agree that the Hyken does some things decent and can be a good option for some people, I think there are far better choices out there, including a future pick in this list. The biggest problems with the Hyken are going to be its build quality and, for me personally, the uncomfortable seat. The build is really low end. This is very evident with the mesh. The mesh on our chair is discolored, and this problem seems to be getting worse. The mesh is also fraying already, and this chair isn't one that's used in our office very often. The seat is a deal breaker for me. While I don't like the Sihu's seat, it's still usable. I cannot say the same for the Hyken. I can only use this chair for about 30 minutes before I have to get out of it. The seat design, specifically the front edge, is what makes it unusable for me. The Hyken uses a pad on the front of the seat to help protect your legs from the front edge of the seat frame, but this creates a massive problem with a crease that just feels uncomfortable on the back of my legs. The seat is small, and there's no way to remedy this. For me, this is easily an F-tier seat. The backrest, while not as bad as the seat, I don't think it offers very good comfort, and the headrest, while it does its job, is small and not as good as other products for a similar price. The recline is also very limited. It does lock in place, but I think that there's better options out there for under $200, even if you're looking for an all-mesh chair. The FlexiSpot OC3 is one of the highlights of this list for me. The build quality won't wow you, but it does feel a little bit better built than chairs like the Hyken. I'm not a fan of mesh seats in general, but this is one of the better mesh seats I've used. It's large, and I don't find the front edge to have the same problems as the Hyken. FlexiSpot still chose to go with a pad, but the curve of the front is much better designed to limit that creasing effect that I find to be so uncomfortable on the back of my legs. The seat still has hard outer edges and is firmer than padded models, but I find the seat to be more comfortable than mesh seats on much more expensive chairs like the $800 plus X chair. The backrest is also pretty good. I do not find the frame to be too pronounced, and it does have a little bit of flex to it. Unfortunately, the lumbar support is useless. I can't feel it at all, and it feels super flimsy. One great thing about the back, though, is the recline. It's really deep, much more so than the Hyken. I also think they did a good job with the headrest. It has good adjustments, and it's nice and large, so you never have to deal with feeling an uncomfortable frame. The armrests aren't going to be great because they're only height adjustable, so they're pretty limited, but the pads are decent. They have some softness to them, and they're a good shape. While I still prefer the Ticova to this model, this chair would be a recommended pick for me for anyone looking for an all-mesh option for under $200. The Kalami Kieran chair is the one chair I've found that really makes me question whether the Ticova should still be my number one pick. The Kieran does so many things well, starting with that build quality. This is the most well-built chair I've seen for under $200, and it really sets it apart from every other chair in this price point, including the Ticova, because that is almost always the weakness of a sub $200 chair. I'm also a big fan of the seat on this chair. I haven't had it long enough to know how it will hold up over the long haul, but it feels much more comfortable than any other chair I've tested for under $200. Another huge plus with the seat on the Kieran is that it has depth adjustment. This is super rare for a cheap chair, but really helps to ensure that it fits you properly. The Kieran also has four-way arm adjustment, one of the few chairs you will find with this much adjustment and the only one in this list for under $200. The pads themselves have some softness to them, and they have a cool shape from an aesthetic standpoint, but I would prefer if they didn't have the rounded edges and just gave you a little bit more surface area to work with, but overall, I still think they're good. The backrest is good as well. I find it to be supportive, and the lumbar support is comfortable without being too intrusive. My main gripe with the Kieran is going to be the recline. It has a bit of that hip thrusty recline, and I would prefer if they went with more of a standard recline motion like a synchro tilt. But aside from the recline and the lack of a headrest, I think everything about the Kieran is a bit better than that of the Ticova. It's tough for me to say that the Kieran or the Ticova is number one because they do well in different areas. I think both can be great options depending on what you're looking for.